Welcome to the Grow, Create, Sip podcast, where we chat about growing and creating your own herbal medicine from common herbs, as well as how to craft tasty herbal infusions. This podcast is available in all podcast players, along with the video version on YouTube.
Every week, we will take some of your questions as our topic of the week and get you the answers that you are looking for. Feel free to leave questions below this video, or if you are listening, send them to us at howdy@farmhouseteas.com. Hello, I'm Paul.
And I'm Cian. This week on the Grow, Create, Sip podcast, we are going to talk about my top 5 herbs to grow for tea in your garden.
All right, that's going to be good.
Yep, right up our alley.
Yep, just right in the wheelhouse there.
But first, we're going to talk about what's going on the farm this last 2 weeks, because we missed a week of podcasting.
That's right.
Yeah,
A little bit of an update here.
Yeah, been a wild 2 weeks.
Yeah, very busy.
So what have you been up to?
Mostly the last 2 weeks I've been up to like canning beans and
Green beans.
Yeah, green beans, canning green beans and picking cucumbers so you can pickle them.
Yeah, I need to get to that.
Yeah, they're building up once again in the fridge.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the big thing there, and then for outdoor stuff, and then inside I've been packing Simply soap kits for Homesteading family.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out their membership area, they're doing a challenge, which will have probably started by the time this podcast comes out. But it's open anytime. It doesn't have to be stuck on that date, on how to make a cold press soap and all of that entails. So yeah, we're busy packing kits for that include the tools and the oils and butters that go with that. What all goes in that kit?
So the soap kit that you get with Carolyn's class contains a soap mold, some castor oil, some shea butter, some cocoa butter. It's got a little pour pitcher, some
for the lye, because you want to make sure that gets in the right container.
Right. We supply some gloves, some goggles, so a couple of safety things. Yeah. And then there's a couple of thermometers, a spatula, some powders for dye.
Yeah, some natural dyes.
Yep. And then you have the option also of purchasing an essential oil bundle, we're calling it.
Yep, we have our, I don't know if I should announce this, our own branded essential oil line.
Yeah. We're
that we put together just for this.
Just for this, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's for soaping. It's not for anything that's not cosmetic.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. So that's pretty much sums that up. You can check that out.
So we're putting all that together. It's all pre-measured, everything that's needed for that without having to go hunt it down and find it and all the pieces. So we're doing that, which is what's keeping you busy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing the footwork there.
Yeah, I think it's a little detail you mentioned there is important. So things like the shea butter and the castor oil and the powders for coloring and the essential oils, we've tried our best to make sure all those measurements are what you need in the course.
They match the recipes from Homesteading family. So this kit does not come with recipes.
No, the kit doesn't have the recipes, but it's designed to fit the recipes that Carolyn's going to show you how to make.
So it's something where both pieces are needed, and we have one piece, and Homesteading family has the other piece.
Yeah.
Yep, that's been keeping you busy.
Yep, and there's a couple of things that we should mention too about that we don't put in there, such as the olive oil,
coconut oil, and the lye. We're not shipping lye, so
yeah,
we're keeping that away from food products like tea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so all those details, we'll put a link below to the kit and to the class.
Yeah.
To the membership challenge.
Right.
And you can check it all out there.
So that's what's been keeping me up at all hours.
Busy, and you packed the last ones on the list, right?
That's right.
So they're all going out for that to start next week.
Right.
And so you will get to focus on something else.
Yeah, I'll have other things to focus on. So what's been keeping you busy?
Cucumbers.
Yeah.
And green beans.
Yeah.
So we're kind of trading off on who picks those, thanks to our bean tunnel, because I can do that without having my chronic fatigue kick in too much. The bush beans were not something I could help you with.
Yeah. Bending over and picking beans is difficult.
exhausted me. So
Yeah.
it's been really nice to have that bean funnel.
Yeah.
The cucumbers are trellis and they're okay, but I think next year they'll go in the grow boxes because they're still really low to the ground.
Okay.
And I think that that'll save some more bending over. So I haven't really picked as many of those as you have, but I'm fermenting them into pickles. It's a raw ferment, so I'm not canning them in vinegar. We're just doing a salt brine and a ferment on the countertop.
So you pretty much refuse to can cucumbers, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yep, do. Not going there. So I like my food as alive as possible. So the goal of canning is to kill absolutely everything so that you don't end up with any gunk in your jar of food. The goal of fermenting is to keep it alive and to use the good bacteria and life on the food from the garden and preserve that and get probiotics. And then you don't have to take it in a capsule.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot cheaper that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm fermenting pickles. We are canning green beans because those will end up cooked anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so that doesn't really change any scenario there. We eat the ones raw. We eat while we have them. But long term,
Yeah.
we could ferment those. Maybe that's what we'll do with the ones that are kind of straggling behind. If
But
we
it
have
would
too
be-
many, but we'll probably just eat those.
It would be pretty weird to have like chicken, mashed potatoes and gravy, and fermented green beans.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah.
But we'll save the canned ones for that.
Yeah.
And then I'm dehydrating lots of tomatoes.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a bazillion more to put in there if the heat stays for any period of time.
Yeah.
You can see we're both wearing jackets and sweaters. It's getting kind of cold out here.
Yep. The cool weather is coming.
Yeah. So,
But it looks like the forecast has another at least week of good,
right.
solid weather.
Right.
So,
So I'm dehydrating all those tomatoes because, again, I like to can them. And they take less space this way.
Yeah,
and
they do.
They take a lot less time than if you're going to de-seed them and de-skin them and cook them to death and cook the liquid out and then can them for, I don't even know how long so I've not canned them. So the tomatoes will still be made into sauce with a blender and some water later when I'm ready, but they'll store in a smaller space this way. I save my jars, I save my time. So those three things. Oh, I'm trying to figure out what to do with all the zucchini. We have like 10 zucchini plants, and it's probably a good thing our soil that they're in is bad. They're not in the grow boxes because otherwise I'd really have a problem. Reminder next year, if we put zucchini anywhere other than in that bad soil, just plant 2.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we still have dried zucchini and frozen zucchini from last year.
We have dried. Yeah, I managed to use the frozen,
Oh,
or I
did you?
gave it to the chickens. I might have given up on it.
Yeah, that's usually what happens with the last few zucchinis, or
the chickens.
yeah, the chickens get them.
Yep,
So
chicken food. So
yeah.
that's all I've been able to get to looking at the garden that's surrounding us. I've obviously not been out here as often as I need to be. So there's lots of herbs to harvest and tomatoes that need attention. And these marigolds behind us are so tall that they're falling over on the backside and crushing tomatoes. So they need to be managed.
Yep.
So, other than that, I've been getting those soap kits out the door with handwritten notes. So that's what I've been up to.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So before we get started on those herbs that you had in mind to talk about, maybe we should cover a couple of housekeeping things.
Yeah, we have coming up. This will either, when you see this or hear this podcast, will be tomorrow or the next day. So Thursday, September 22nd at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 5 Mountain time, 6 p.m. Central time, and 7 p.m. Eastern time. I've got this down.
Yeah.
I'm doing a live webinar. I guess you won't be there. You'll probably be out distracting farm children and things so that I can share about fire cider. So I found, I cleaned the pantry, like
Yes.
major overhaul of the pantry that took over 2 hours.
Yes,
And
by the way, your pantry is clean, but my garage is a wreck.
yeah, some of it is temporarily sitting in the garage. Anyway, I found in the pantry some fire cider, both from our dry mix and from a fresh batch that I made that I never strained.
Is that what's sitting on the counter in that
That's what's
jar?
sitting on the counter. It looks kind of wonky. It's still good though because it's preserved in a raw apple cider vinegar.
Oh.
But I really need to strain it. So I'm going to do that live on the webinar
Oh, nice.
while I start some fresh stuff.
Uh-huh.
So that everyone can see the full entire process. And I'm going to talk about some fall medicinal herbs. Fire cider's one of those things that's handy to have in the fall when cold and flu season rolls around, but I want to talk about some other things too.
Okay, some herbs that would pair well with the fire
Yeah,
cider, huh?
because you want to have those before you get sick. So like with the tincture, you want to have, those take like 6 to 8 weeks to make.
Uh-huh.
And so you want to have that ready before you need it, especially if it's a tincture you're making for like the first signs of a cold.
Uh-huh.
You need to have that ready right away because if you miss that window, it doesn't work. And
Right.
then you enter into having to take care of already having it.
So you're going to give some tips on these various things in the webinar then, huh?
And I have bright ideas. I might make more than fire cider, but I also know me better, and that will probably take all of the live ability. So I'll talk about the other things. I probably won't be able to show them all.
Okay.
So the webinar link will be in the show notes, and you're going to want to get on that list so that you get the secret link to the live webinar. And bring your herb questions.
Okay.
Yep. So we did have one other thing. We just want to remind everyone that we're also teaching a live kombucha workshop, but that is not going to be until June of 2023.
Right. Yep.
But tickets are on sale right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you want to see Sian live,
because he really wants to see me talk on stage for the first time. I think I'm going to keep him out of the room so he doesn't provoke anything.
I'm sure, well, it sounds like I'll be manning the booth, so you might be in luck.
Y'all, hopefully that aren't there, the kombucha thing will be giving him grief and buying stuff at our booth and whatever else we might have there. So.
Yeah. Yep. Should be interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of planning to do yet, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and there'll be it's a homestead conference, so it's modern homesteading. Modern homesteading conference, left out part of it. And I'll put the link down below. You can buy your tickets. I don't know how many are available. They've been on sale for a while, so I don't know how quick those will sell out. But Joel Salatin will be there, Daniel Salatin, Doc Jones from I'm trying to remember the name of his farm, herbalist. He's an herbalist from southern Idaho. It'll come to me in a minute. Anyway, he'll be there. Azure Standard.
Oh.
The owner of Azure Standard will be there. I think they have a couple other people coming to speak. Melissa K. Norris, Homesteading Family. The list has doubled since last time we mentioned it, and I can't remember all the names. I should have looked them up. So yeah, big to do there. Yeah.
So where is that again?
Yeah, this is in North Idaho, Coeur d'Alene. Yep. So at the fairgrounds there.
Next June.
Next June 2023. Yeah. So I think that probably covers our couple little things we want to mention, just the webinar that's coming up as well as that conference. So let's dive into our topic for the week.
Okay, so it's 5 herbs, huh, that you want to cover that have to do with what?
Being able to grow the herbs in your garden from tea specifically, but they also happen to be medicinal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some medicinal tea herbs that you can grow in your own garden.
Yep, and this question comes from Rachel. Rachel wanted to know, what are my top 5 herbs for growing in the garden for tea?
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so what's number 1 on your list today?
Calendula.
Okay. All right, so why is calendula on your list?
So calendula is the flower. It's a flower that got me started in growing my own herbs for medicine and what has now become Farmhouse teas.
So what's calendula good for?
Calendula is excellent for the skin, inside and out.
Okay.
So if you've got eczema or you've got a rash or you've got a cut or maybe even a bruise, for externally, sunburn. Calendula is good for sunburn. So all of those don't really have to do with the tea, although you could dab it on if you made a strong tea out of calendula. You could dab it on those things. That would help like a sunburn. It'd probably be really good if it was cold, really heavily brewed calendula tea. So, but internally, because tea we're usually drinking, right?
Yep.
And it goes inside. So I mentioned it's good for internal skin, which is what lines your digestive system.
Oh.
Yeah. So 80% of your immune system is in your digestive system. It's full of lymphatic tissue, and calendula is really good at cleaning the lymphatic system. Ask me how I know. Don't ask me. That's probably another podcast.
There you go.
Yeah, we should just cover these real briefly. Otherwise, we may be here a while. I could probably talk an hour about calendula.
So why are we covering calendula in the fall?
Well, if you already have it planted, and you're in like a temperate climate, like us, I'm trying to remember, we're zone 8A or 8B. We're kind of on a line here. It'll bloom through like November.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it'll start early, like February, March. And so it's probably not one you want to plant right now because it's pretty quick to seed.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be too cold. Right now, if we planted it, I don't know. It might come up here. It'd probably come up in the greenhouse, in our hoop house.
Yeah. So
I planted it now.
what's your favorite thing to do? What's your favorite recipe with that?
To make with it.
Yeah.
I like to throw it in a lymphatic tea. It's probably how I use it the most these days, but what we kind of stick to is our calendula salve. It's not a tea, but we're all about herbal infusions, which, is just a tea with an oil instead of water. Yep. So when we sell that, you make lots of that calendula salve.
I have done that a few times, preparing the oil just by basically steeping it for an extended period of time.
So it's just like tea, but it's oil.
Mix your calendula flowers in with the oil and put it on low heat for a number of hours. And
it's also a feature ingredient in one of our first tea blends.
Right.
Rose Garden Repose, which is a nighttime tea.
Yep. Supposed to be really soothing, I guess, right?
Yep. So it's just kind of a soothing, calming herb, and it's because it's going to calm down any inflammation in the digestive system.
Okay. So these are great to grow in your garden because here in North America they grow pretty easily wherever you are, right?
Yeah. Someone will probably let me know where it doesn't grow. But, in general, they're super easy to grow. That was the first thing I grew, and they are just all over the place. And you won't believe it with this garden, but I really do have a black thumb. It's getting greener. Yeah. So.
Okay, so what else? What's next?
You mentioned fall, so let's talk about the couple that I have on here for fall.
Okay. Roses was one, right?
Yeah, roses. We're getting ready to finally plant those roses. We did that unboxing for. We've been keeping them alive in the greenhouse. They are alive, right?
Yeah. There's a couple of them that have made it into the grow boxes out here in the garden,
right.
And they're actually making
really
progress.
In fact, I see that one over there shot up a new sprout.
Yeah.
Way away from where it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so those two are doing good. We're trying to get those specific ones to climb a trellis.
Yeah.
But one is working, one is not. Anyway, we have those other ones.
Yeah.
And we bought those specifically to do an experiment in growing our own rose hips.
Right.
Yep. And so we're going to get those planted. But so the reason that roses is on my list is for the rose hips. And their high vitamin C content, but those rose hips are also really flavorful. We use a lot of rose hips in tea.
We do. We use a ton of them.
Yep, they have a tart berry flavor. Okay. So other than the flavor, the really yummy flavor, it can be a bit tart. So you want to keep that in mind when you're blending. But all that vitamin C is really, really good for fall, and that happens to be when the rose hips get harvested. After the first frost is when they sweeten up, and that's when you harvest them. Okay. So fall is the time to plant them. Also the spring, kind of before, after cold and before heat. Okay. Which is why we need to get those plants in the ground. But the petals of the roses can be used in tea too, as long as they're not sprayed. The bushes aren't sprayed. So the petals, they have some minor medicinal effects, mostly on mood and like heart health. But they're mostly there because they're pretty. And rose petal tea is a thing, like in Bulgaria. It's a
Yeah, I
thing,
remember
so-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but they add a lot of color, and I like my tea to look pretty too, and not just be flavorful. So I mean, you eat with your eyes first, right? Don't you? Don't you see that big plate of lasagna and go, that looks good.
Okay,
It
yeah.
looks good, and then you smell it. Use all your senses when you eat.
Okay.
Yeah, it's important. So that's two of them. The other one that would be good for fall is rosemary.
Rosemary. Now, why is rosemary something you'd be concerned about in the fall?
So rosemary, if you're starting from seed, takes like 2 to 3 weeks to germinate. So like you stick the seed in the ground and nothing happens for 3 weeks.
For a long time.
So you're probably gonna want to start that inside, because most places, rosemary is a Mediterranean plant, so likes heat.
Likes warm climates.
Yeah. So you're gonna want to start those inside anyway, or in a greenhouse. And I'm way more patient with stuff growing in the fall in the greenhouse than I am in the spring.
Yeah.
You could do it in the spring, but you probably also have a slightly warmer temperatures in the fall than the spring.
I would agree
'Cause
with
you're
that.
waiting, it's already cold, and now it's trying to warm up in the spring. In the fall, it's just cooling off. It's
Yeah.
not already cold.
And it seems like the ground is already cold in the spring, and it struggles to get up to temperature. And in the fall, the
Right.
ground's warm,
Right.
and doesn't seem like it cools down as
Right.
fast.
But you wouldn't want to plant direct sow those into the ground, because it's going to get cold, and it doesn't like cold. So rosemary, it can survive outside.
So does it take a long time to grow even after it germinates?
It's kind of a slow plant, yeah.
Okay.
Until it gets, I don't know, 4 to 8 inches big, and then when it warms up, it'll just like take off. But it's still pretty slow growing. It's not like a tomato. It's not like these marigolds behind us.
Okay.
So, but rosemary, you might not think of that as a plant for tea.
Well, not really. I was thinking about
Really?
pizza or something.
I've made pizza tea.
That's
Now
true.
everyone's gonna ask, can
Yeah.
we buy your pizza tea?
I
don't have it for
remember that.
sale. Yeah, I made it as a gig gift. It was great. I don't know. I had to do that again. I think I still have the recipe. Anyway, you can make it a tea. It would be more of a medicinal tea. We use rosemary in a herbal steam mix.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
So technically that's a tea, because you use hot boiling water, you use herbs, and then you sniff it. You don't drink it.
Okay.
You smell the steam, sorry. But yeah, you could put it in a tea. So like a really good way to use rosemary would be to steep it in chicken broth and drink it.
What? Thought we were talking about tea here.
Okay, so rosemary might take a little bit of effort to make a tea with,
But
but it has lots of medicinal properties.
so it's worth considering.
Yeah, you definitely want to look at rosemary. It's really good for like sinus type stuff. I don't want to make any medicinal claims here on the podcast.
Sure.
Upper respiratory support.
Okay.
And it's also good for inflammation, and it's really good for helping circulation. So like lymphatic, maybe congestion, getting things going.
Oh, I
It's
see.
a mover, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So rosemary is a good one, and we have a full blog post on how to grow and harvest and use rosemary. I'll put that rosemary blog post link down below. We'll have some more tips in there on how to use that.
Okay, good.
So those are the two that I would probably consider planting in the fall right now.
Roses and rosemary.
Roses and rosemary. The others are going to grow faster, and so they don't need to be planted right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you could certainly use some if you bought them already to practice, and then plant them in the spring.
So we got a couple left?
Yeah, we have a couple
herbs
of,
left,
so we
yeah?
did calendula, and we did roses and rosemary.
So what about chamomile? Wasn't that on the list?
Yep, chamomile's on there. So chamomile is a very popular herbal tea. Chamomile is really, 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 really good for the digestive system. Unfortunately, I am allergic to chamomile.
What?
It makes my throat itchy unless I grow it myself.
That doesn't make sense to
I
me.
have to have it mostly fresh. Like I have to dehydrate it and use it right away. Well, so chamomile is a very tender plant. And when you dehydrate it, it likes to just crumble and just kind of fall apart. And so it's really hard to keep it in a high quality state.
I've noticed when I'm blending tea with chamomile in it, it produces a lot of like fine
dusty,
particles. Yeah.
And so I have, in order for me to use it, it's got to be really fresh. I'm going to try a tincture though and see if, I'm wondering if it's a dust, its tendency to turn into kind of a dust that's giving me problems, because I can do it fresh. So I'm wondering if I use a tincture, if that would be better for me personally. But most people have problems with chamomile. I'm just strange. Yep.
So you have it on the fall list here. Is it on the fall list because of its medicinal qualities, or because you need to plant it in the fall, or?
No, we only had the two things on the fall list. This is just my top 5.
I see.
Yeah, so we had the roses and the rosemary on the fall list, but all 5 of these are just my top 5.
For growing in your garden. Okay, so why is chamomile on your list?
So chamomile's there because it's really, really good for the digestive system. It's also really calming. So we get a lot of questions from customers about what teas do we have that will help with insomnia, trouble sleeping. So chamomile is really good for that insomnia, sleep. And, we used it with our youngest daughter. I used it when she was teething. She was like 3 months old. And I made some really diluted chamomile tea and gave it to her in a dropper, and she like went right to sleep. So it's considered a food, and it's very safe, even for children. Yet it's very strong in some ways. So
So it grows well in the garden, I take it.
yeah, it grows well. It'll self-seed. So, be careful where you plant it. Make sure you're going to want it to come back there. We say that our new soil in our garden boxes are growing chamomile over here, and I didn't plant it.
I noticed that over here on our left. There's some white flowers.
It's not like the worst thing ever, but they're kind of bushy. And so they aren't like an upright flower, a pretty garden flower. They're kind of a shrub. So
little cover plant.
Yep, so that's why chamomile is on there. And then I had to pick one mint, because the question was top 5, Rachel. I think she knows that I wouldn't be able to just pick 5. So a mint had to go on here somewhere. And so I picked lemon balm. And I had reasons for that. So peppermint tastes really good and all. I would drink, prefer peppermint tea. But it's also a stimulant. And so I went with lemon balm because it has a lot more medicinal properties in some ways than a peppermint. Lemon balm works on the nervous system. So after COVID, just everyone's got a lot of nervous tension. I went through a lot of stress, maybe some job changes, a lot of changes. So lemon balm is a good one for stress and anxiety. And it will also go with that chamomile at night to sleep. It might really be a powerful combination.
I know my sister uses lemon balm and says it works really good for calming down at night.
Right. So if you're fighting anything like adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, something where you're tired, and that might make it sound like you're so tired you just sleep, but you actually need energy to be able to fall asleep.
And sometimes you have chronic fatigue and adrenal fatigue because you're so wired all the time.
Right. So maybe too many stimulants of some variety, a coffee or caffeinated coffee, or caffeinated tea even, or energy drinks, too many Red Bulls. Now lemon balm's not going to fix that altogether. You got to cut that stuff out too. But it'll help.
Might help calm you down and get you off of that stuff. Yeah.
So we're getting kind of dark outside for those of you on the YouTube version of this podcast. So we should probably start wrapping it up here. Lemon balm was number 5.
Okay.
I have 10.
10 what?
I have 10 medicinal herbs I recommend planting in your garden. She only asked for 5. So the other
Okay.
5 are in a blog post down below in the show notes. Because, I mean, you got to draw the line somewhere. So we're drawing at 5. I thought 10 was my line, but, you know, we would be here for hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the blog post with the other 5 will be down in the show notes. Or you can head on over to growcreatesip.com and click on the podcast link. And this is episode number 4.
Number 4.
Woohoo! So, yep. Also, you will want to check out our ebook if you're planning and planting an herbal garden. We have an ebook for you, and that comes with kind of a little workbook so that you can work out what the best herbs are for your herb garden, because a lot of things are going to come into play, like how much space you have, if you're growing in the ground or in a grow box, if you rent or if you are buying a house. Also, your growing zones, you know, is going to be a big difference. So we're pretty temperate here.
So you got all this in your ebook, huh?
Yeah, it's all in the ebook. So I'll put that link down below. Make sure and check that out. It comes with plans and all sorts of good stuff.
Nice.
So, yep. So coming up on our YouTube channel, we're going to do a video on planting the roses, which we mentioned when we talked about roses. And we also will have a video coming up that is a review of Homestead Ironworks tools. So there's some handmade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those handmade tools are waiting for me to do a review on. So that stuff is coming up. And next week we have a sale.
A sale.
It's pumpkin spice season.
Oh, yes. I've seen all that stuff flowing in through the mail.
I know we have one last thing that I got to get done, but it'll be done by the time this comes out, is the farm girl and I are making pumpkin spice soap in the shape of a pumpkin.
Uh-huh. Little Rose Goat Soap Co. is making
Yeah,
an
Little
appearance
Rose Goat
again, huh?
Soap Co. is back at it. So we have a
Nice.
bunch of that to make. It was super popular last year. I have a few more boxes than I had last year, but they went so fast, I'm kind of worried maybe I didn't get enough of those.
Well, we're still working on the apple bundle too,
Yeah,
right?
and we have the apple bundle. So pumpkin spice sale is this week when this comes out.
Nice.
Yep. So that'll do it for us this week on the Grow, Create, Sip podcast. If you didn't take any notes, that's okay. We took them for you, and they are down below in the show notes, or you can check them out over at growcreatesip.com and click on podcast and find episode number 4.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll catch you next time. Thanks for joining us.
All right. We'll catch you later.
Bye.